Have you ever noticed how some people just seem to have this magnetic pull? They walk into a room and suddenly everyone wants to be around them. They send one text message and people drop everything to respond. Meanwhile, the rest of us are out here double texting and getting left on red. The psychological trick that makes people obsessed with you. Here's the thing though, it's not about looks, money, or status. There's actually a specific psychological mechanism at play here, and once you understand it, you can use it too. But I'm warning you right now, this goes against everything your parents probably taught you about being nice and available. Ready? Let's dive in. The scarcity principle, your secret weapon. The psychological trick that makes people obsessed with you is called the scarcity principle, and it's stupidly simple. People want what they can't easily have. Think about it. Why do people camp outside Apple stores for the newest iPhone? Why do limited edition sneakers sell for thousands of dollars? Why does everyone suddenly want to join a club the moment they hear it's exclusive? It's all scarcity. Your brain is literally wired to assign more value to rare things. Back when humans were hunter-gatherers, resources were limited, food was scarce, shelter was scarce. So our ancestors who paid extra attention to rare, valuable things had a better chance of survival. That psychological programming is still in your brain today, affecting every decision you make, including who you're attracted to and who you want to be friends with. Here's where most people mess up. Most people do the exact opposite of scarcity. They're too available, too eager, too responsive. Someone they like sends them a message. They reply in 30 seconds. Someone asks if they're free. Yeah, totally. Anytime works. Someone shows them the tiniest bit of attention. They rearrange their entire schedule. And what happens? The other person loses interest, not because they're a bad person, but because human psychology is brutal. When something is easily available, your brain automatically assumes it's less valuable. I know this sounds harsh, but think about your own experience. Have you ever had someone who was super into you, always available, always saying yes to everything? How did you feel about them? Now compare that to someone who was a bit harder to pin down, who had their own life going on, who sometimes said no. Which one did you think about more? Yeah, exactly. How to actually apply this now. Before you misunderstand me, I'm not telling you to play games or be manipulative. I'm telling you to have genuine self-respect and boundaries. There's a massive difference. Here's how scarcity works in real relationships. First, stop being instantly available. If someone texts you, it's okay to respond when it's actually convenient for you. You don't need to drop everything. You're not being rude. You're showing that you have a life, priorities, and things that matter to you beyond this one person. Second, have real commitments. Don't cancel your gym session, your work project, or your time with friends just because someone wants to hang out. People who are genuinely busy with meaningful activities are more attractive than people who are just sitting around waiting for a text message. Third, learn to say no sometimes. This is huge. If you say yes to absolutely everything, your yes loses all meaning. But when you occasionally say no, respectfully and without over-explaining, people start to understand that your time and energy actually have value. The intermittent reinforcement effect. Now here's where it gets really interesting. There's another psychological principle that works alongside scarcity, and it's called intermittent reinforcement. Psychologist B.F. Skinner discovered this by accident while studying rats. He found that when you reward behavior randomly, sometimes yes, sometimes no, it creates the strongest possible psychological response. Stronger than rewarding every single time, stronger than never rewarding at all. This is why slot machines are so addictive. You don't win every time, but you win just enough to keep pulling that lever. In social dynamics, this means that being consistently inconsistent, sometimes very responsive, sometimes less available, creates a powerful psychological hook. The other person's brain literally gets addicted to the uncertainty. They start thinking about you more, wondering where you are, what you're doing, why you haven't responded yet. Again, I'm not suggesting you deliberately mess with people's emotions, but naturally varying your availability based on your actual life creates this effect automatically. The contrast principle in action. Here's another layer: the contrast principle. This states that we judge things based on comparison to what came before. If you're always a 7 out of 10 in terms of enthusiasm and attention, you'll be perceived as a 7. But if you're sometimes a 5 and sometimes a 9, those 9s will feel like 12s. The contrast makes your positive moments way more impactful. Think about the friend who always compliments everyone. Their compliments don't mean much anymore, but the friend who rarely gives compliments, when they say something nice, it actually matters. This is why being selectively invested is more powerful than being constantly invested. Your attention becomes a reward instead of a given. The biggest mistake? Trying too hard. The irony of all this is that the people who need this advice most are the ones who will mess it up by trying too hard. They'll read this and think, okay, I'll ignore everyone for 3 days, then send a mysterious text, then disappear again. That's not scarcity, that's just being weird and manipulative. Real scarcity comes from genuinely having a life you're invested in. It comes from actual self respect, not manufactured aloofness. People can smell fakeness from a mile away. The goal isn't to become some calculated game playing robot. The goal is to build a life so interesting and fulfilling that you naturally become a scarce resource. You're not trying to seem busy, you actually are busy with things that matter to you. The long game. Here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. If you have to use tricks to keep someone interested, they're probably not your person anyway. The scarcity principle works best when it's authentic, when you have genuine passions, real goals, meaningful friendships, and self respect that doesn't depend on any one person's approval. That's when you become naturally magnetic. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you're actually hard to get. There's a difference. The people worth having in your life will respect your boundaries and appreciate your independence. The ones who lose interest when you're not constantly available, they were never going to add real value to your life anyway. Final thoughts. So, yes, the scarcity principle is real, and it absolutely affects how people perceive you. But use it wisely. Be someone worth being obsessed with. Build a life so compelling that your time genuinely is valuable. Develop interests, skills, and relationships that matter to you independently of any one person's attention. When you do that, scarcity isn't a trick anymore, it's just reality. And that's when you become truly magnetic.